A major sonic boom rocks the Washington, D.C. area. It turns out that it's going to be a plane crash. The F-16s around D.C. were scrambled to respond to a plane flying erratically, and there's a lot more questions to this, including the passenger list, which appears to, by the way, have included a major mega donor. So we'll be talking just a bit about what's happening with that, some of the details of that, and, well, some of the questions that are staying arisen from this very, very odd situation. So we'll go over all of that, and we will look into the presidential politics. Mike Pence joins a crowded field, and even Rolling Stone is bagging on Mike Pence to the expense of Trump. So we'll be talking just a bit about that, what's happening there and what happened with that. Nikki Haley gives a town hall, and CNN and all the rest of the outlets jump to fact check it. And a lawmaker probing the January 6th probe has found the scripts that the people who were giving the live testimony were supposed to give on camera. So we'll talk about that. It is going to be all of this and probably more over here on Contemporary. I was the one flying the plane. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Wow, what a weird weekend. Like, when I saw the thing with the plane crash, I didn't know that there was a plane crash. Like, there's a Baltimore news outlet that I follow for, well, I'm not going to go over the reasons why I follow that particular news outlet, but the one anchor that I follow over there was reporting live on it when it was happening. So I was seeing a lot of it in her Instagram stories, and, like, I had no idea when I started this out that I was going to start organizing Contemporary and realized there was a connection. Like, the top story on Daily Wire was the fact that one of the people in this plane was a major MAGA donor, and I had no idea that this was the same incident. So that's weird, and that made top story today. I would have, like, under any other news cycle, Mike Pence going into the race and getting humiliated, and Rolling Stone coming out and saying, and this gives Trump a chance to humiliate him again. That would have been the top story. But there's just so much weird going on with this plane crash. But we'll be talking about this. We'll be talking about the presidential politics. I've actually got some Biden stuff going on here too, including we'll be looking at those little curly-haired geeks who decided to make their first trip to the White House, just as we were getting started. So they're telling us that, oh, he's sane in 4 more years and everything else. So we'll be going over some of that. Some stuff on the January 6th panel. We've actually got a pair from Just the News because nobody else is covering any of this. And plenty more over here on Contemporary. So strap yourselves in, tell some friends, get some people in here, grab a snack, and let's get into the news for the night because we've got a lot to go over with it tonight. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out Tweets by Brit and Mr. Behavior, KTZed's Overruled, who just, by the way, did a great episode on the Killdozer. That was actually pretty fantastic. I was glad to catch that. Also, check out the No Gimmicks podcast, Silentcaster, and the Clown World Chronicles as we bring you a better news experience from the common man for the common man. That's right. Stop getting your news from people who wear suits that hate you and cost more than your house. The suits don't hate you, the news anchors do. And start getting your news from people who are just like you. And with that, we're going to, because we've got a lot to go over here today, get right into it with the news. And we're going to start with the Dow, which, by the way, it was another wild story over the weekend here. So you remember on Friday when the Dow jumped like 400 points? And we were told this was the beginning of the end for the Republican Party. And this was all because of the debt ceiling deal. And Biden has saved us all. And we're going into eon of economic prosperity. And everybody has jobs. And look at all these jobs in the jobs report and everything else. Well, it turns out not so much. And I still don't know, because I didn't pre-read our finance article today, how they are going to come back out and spin this. But the Dow dumped out. It started off just a teensy tiny bit strong off the day and then dumped off through the rest of the day. 200 points across the day. That is a little bit over 0.5%, 0.59%, to 33,562.86. So we'll definitely be going over what happened there and what this means. It's kind of interesting to me that the Dow cannot get, it can't shake itself out of about approximately a 2,000 point spread. Like, that seems to be the rope that we've been jumping since about the beginning of 2023, or 2022 rather, when everything started to fall down. Like, it all went really, really good in 2021, but since the beginning of about 2022, it's between 32,000 and just shy of 34,000, and it really hasn't broken out of those. I think it hit 31,000 at one point in those. Well, in the last year, it's gone down all the way to 28,000, but it just seems to hold in that level. I don't know if you guys have noticed that or not, but that is what we were seeing coming off of that and where that goes. Looking at your Bitcoin, that actually took a major drop off today. The Bitcoin is at $25,723 US and 30 US cents. Your Bitcoin is on sale right now. That is down $1,398 US and 20 US cents. 5% drop on the Bitcoin on the day, and almost all of that came probably about 4 hours ago after it significantly dropped. It bounced back, but then fell back to just above the level where it hit at its very bottom. Looking at the 5 days so we can see what happened over the weekend, and you can also see fairly steadiness coming into the weekend, and then just a little bit into Sunday it started to topple steadily. Not a huge drop like what we saw here, but a steady drop anyway, before coming back and taking the drop that we saw earlier on. So a little bit of interest coming in with the Bitcoin right here, and in fact, I mean, it's only dropped another $100 over the past 5 days. So we had a really, really good steady week last week on the Bitcoin. So that's what we see coming off of that. Your gas prices in Madison are inexplicably dropping. I was just a little bit surprised to see that myself coming up here. Coming into some of the summer holiday here, we've got 330 on the east side with a 320 outlier, 330 on the west side with a 340 outlier. Looking at that, 360 still coming into the isthmus at the BP, so it looks like everything is coming down. Remember, these prices do not reflect your local prices. Check your local listings to see what your local prices are, but this is a pattern that your local prices likely do follow. So while the numbers may not be the same, the margins and the jumps and the drops are probably following a pretty similar chart with this. Kind of interesting too, because Saudi Arabia just cut back its production, so we may see a shakeup in the markets, but we will see what happens with that. There is no crystal ball here. We deal on statistics and following the trends, and we will see what happens with this. Let's grab one from IBD. Dow falls as Apple unveils these products. This stock soars after Kathy Wood sells it with an advertisement for free access, June 5th to 11th. Well, if they don't give me free access, I just archive it anyway. This is from Michael Larkin. The Dow fell even as Component and Apple unveiled products including a VR headset and its new iOS 17 operating system for iPhones. Kathy Wood stock Schrodinger scored a session after she sold shares. Finally, leaderboard stock Palo Alto Networks was a top performer. There was some bullish action despite a lack of breakouts. Dexcom and Kinsale Capital are nearing entries, while Fortinet reclaimed a buy point. The 10-year Treasury bond held steady at 3.69, while the 2-year fell 3 points to 4.47%. The yield curve remains inverted. The Institute for Supply Management U.S. Services fell to 50.3 in May from 51.9 in April. This was lower than views for a decline to 51.8 according to a Bloomberg survey. The Nasdaq fared better than the other major indices, but still lost 0.1% after reversing lower. Zscaler impressed with a 3.8% gain. The benchmark S&P finished the day down 0.2. EPAM Systems lagged with a drop of 21.7 after it cuts its profit and revenue outlook. The S&P sectors finished mixed with slightly negative skew. Utilities and communication services were the strongest areas. Energy and industrials lagged the most. Small caps lagged badly, with the Russell 2000 plunging 1.2. Growth stocks impressed, though, with the Innovator IBD 50 ETF rising 0.9. The Dow was slipping lower heading into the close. It fell almost 200 points lower, down 0.6. Apple reversed lower after it unveiled a slew of products at the Worldwide Developers Conference, which featured a keynote presentation led by CEO Tim Scott. And I think I know why Apple fell lower after that. Like, it's cool that they've got new products out here and they've got stuff that people probably want to buy, but the reality is that nobody can buy it. There are people out there that, they're going to go out and get the newest Apple thing, but for the most part, people are squirreling away cash, hoping to weather what's coming. And most people, even the people who are trying to be paid shills for Biden, know that it's coming. Even if they pretend right now that it isn't. It's coming. So we will see what happens in the markets and where this goes. Let's look at our layoffs report today. Our layoffs report today comes from Spotify. Spotify lays off 200 employees, or about 2% of its workforce. From Rohan Goswami. Spotify announced Monday it's laying off roughly 200 employees, or about 2% of its in-person workforce, as part of an effort to change how the streaming company handles its partnership with leading podcasters from across the globe. Spotify's global workforce was 8,359 people in 2020, according to an SEC filing, with 4,332 of those employees in the United States. The cuts were announced by Sahar El-Habashi, VP at Spotify, in a memo to employees. Those impacted will be provided with generous severance packages, El-Habashi said. El-Habashi said the fundamental pivot from a more uniform proposition will allow us to support the creator community better. Spotify has spent heavily to expand its podcast unit in the last 3 years, since 2020. Spotify spent 493 million euros, or about $526 million US dollars, on 4 different acquisitions in the podcast space, according to an SEC filing. One of those was Rogan, by the way. Spotify also entered into high-profile sponsorship deals with prominent names like Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, Joe Rogan, the online personality. Called it. Spotify did not immediately return a request for comment. So, and again, this is going global. Going and coupling with the jobs report that we saw last week, which was an interesting take in and of itself, because we're sitting here looking at a position where they're adding these 300,000 jobs, and yet we still have massive layoffs every single day. Which tells me again that people are either taking a second job because the unemployment rate is taking higher, or these are people who are sucking up some of the, like, they got laid off from Spotify, and then they're sucking up the last service position they have because they don't think that they'll get another job in their sector before the unemployment runs out, and before somebody else jumps up and takes that other job out from under them. So they're taking what they can get as fast as they can because, well, again, they're not anticipating the job staying out there for very long. So we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. And we will get into our main news of the day and our title card. Let's see. Oh, we got a few here. Biden falls, damn you climate change, or add that Trump's charges his fault. That's 80s Kid coming over here. Mogwai says, was Pence's presidential campaign in the crash? No, but we will be talking about that. Mogwai says, Bitcoin dropped like the new rumor for Lindsey Graham. Be a little bit tactful because of YouTube and Twitch, by the way. Silentcaster says, I had a troll yesterday that told me to self-delete. Moog had to step away for a few minutes while the troll talked. Coincidence? I think not. Well, we'll see what happens with this. And leading today from WBAL TV 11 out of Baltimore. Sonic boom heard in Maryland from F-16s intercepting aircraft in D.C. From Tommy Clark. I wanted to... let's do the video on this one. I usually, on these ones, will read the article, and we will come back out and look at some of the tweets in this, but we're going to listen to this one.
We've learned how a plane crash is connected to this sonic boom, which we're told was caused by an authorized Department of Defense flight.
We heard a giant boom and it woke us up.
I thought it was weird because it's just clear outside. There's no rain, so why would it be thunder?
An explosion, earthquake, or maybe thunder, all theories from Marylanders and Virginians jolted by a loud boom late Sunday afternoon, with reports of houses shaking. The noise was even captured on camera from Annapolis, Maryland to North Springfield, Virginia.
Our ring notifications were going crazy with so many different options. Was it the Navy? Or was it a sonic boom, or was it earthquake?
A few hours after it happened, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, came out with the cause. We're told an F-16 fighter aircraft responded to an unresponsive Cessna aircraft over Washington, D.C. and Northern Virginia. Authorized to travel at supersonic speeds, a sonic boom may have been heard, making people and animals jump across the region.
It was really quiet, and then we woke up and it was like a really sudden, didn't shake the ground, but it was a little too loud. And he was more calm about it than I was. I was like, oh my God, I live right next to DC. What was that?
NORAD says the civilian aircraft was intercepted at 3:20 p.m., but the pilot was unresponsive, and the Cessna soon crashed near the George Washington National Forest in Virginia.
It makes sense. It sounded louder than that to me. And yeah, plane crash too, that is bad.
We're told the NORAD aircraft also used flares, which may have been visible to the public. Now, new tonight, National Transportation Safety Board investigators are expected to arrive to the scene tomorrow. We'll bring you any other updates as we receive them. But for now, live in the newsroom, I'm Tommy Clark, WBAL TV 11 News.
Wow, that's mixed terribly. That was really loud. I apologize for getting into the outro music like that. That kind of shocked me over there. But yeah, that was, and part of the reason that I did want to actually listen to this instead of just read the transcript is, as Mogwai pointed out, they found every single hipster in Maryland. Thank you, Mogwai. But realistically, we got to actually hear what the sonic boom sounded like from various different angles and from various different places around here into Maryland and Virginia. So, it's not just reading the article and saying, "Oh, it's a sonic boom." It was this, it was that. It was. You've got the video. Boom. So, a lot of stuff to unpack with this one here. Let's grab one from Fox 5. Sonic boom heard across D.C. area, identified as F-16 fighter jet. We'll briefly go over this one. We're not going to do the video on this one. We will briefly go over this, though. A fighter jet that was trying to intercept an unresponsive small plane that flew over D.C. Sunday triggered a report of a loud boom that was heard across the area. Reports began to come in to the Fox 5 DC newsroom as well as Twitter around 3 p.m. of what sounded like an explosion as far away as Annapolis, including DC and Northern Virginia. But what about West Virginia and the Mountain Mama? According to Fox News, an F-16 fighter jet was cleared supersonic to respond to an unknown Cessna ignoring radio queries, flying on a strange flight path outside the nation's capital. Officials say, according to the FAA, a Cessna aircraft reportedly crashed near Staunton, Virginia, which was reported earlier to Fox 5 DC. Lucas Tomlinson obtained a statement from NORAD confirming they were dispatched to investigate an unresponsive Cessna 516 citation v aircraft over DC, which is not a big plane, by the way, and Northern Virginia on June 4th, 2023. NORAD went on to say that the NORAD aircraft were authorized to travel at supersonic speeds, and a sonic boom may have been heard by residents of the region during this event. The NORAD aircraft also used flares, which may have been visible to the public in an attempt to draw attention from the pilot. The civilian aircraft was intercepted at approximately 3:20 p.m. Eastern Time. The pilot was unresponsive, and the Cessna subsequently crashed near the George Washington National Forest in Virginia. NORAD attempted to establish contact with the pilot until the aircraft crashed. Multiple tweets early in the afternoon stated the noise could have been the result of an aircraft sonic boom involved in a military exercise, including one from Annapolis' Office of Emergency Management. The city of Bowie also tweeted it was from a plane just outside of Joint Base Andrews. And no, I don't think Guile was there. Sonic boom! The boom was Brandon's toilet from this morning's pudding. We've also been receiving videos and photos sent to us on Twitter of various vantage points with the sound of explosion. Like many of that we've already seen. Kay says, I had literally just went to record a video and the boom went off. Nice. So that's the reports that led into this. The AP first reporting on the crash itself. No survivors found after plane that flew over DC led fighters to scramble, crashes in Virginia. From Michael Balsamo and Ashley Thomas. It's interesting the thought, too, that had to go through something like this. Like, you've got a plane flying over the nation's capital, and we've already had a 9/11 happen once, where the pilot is not responding to any sort of requests, calls, or anything else. And at some point, yeah, NORAD's probably sitting here thinking, this thing's going to the White House. It's probably an evil Trump supporter. I'm sure that went through somebody's mind at some point through this. Let's keep reading. A wayward and unresponsive business plane that flew over the nation's capital Sunday caused the military to scramble fighter jets before the plane crashed in Virginia, officials said. Hours later, police said rescuers reached the site of the plane crash in a rural part of the Shenandoah Valley, and that no survivors were found. Is that near the Blue Ridge Mountains? By the Shenandoah River, by any chance? The Federal Aviation Administration says the Cessna citation took off from Elizabethton, Tennessee, on Sunday, and was headed for Long Island's MacArthur Airport. I know people in that area. Inexplicably, the plane turned around over New York's Long Island and flew a straight path down over DC before it crashed over the mountainous terrain near Montebello, Virginia around 3:30 p.m. It was not immediately clear why the plane and pilot did not respond to radio transmissions, why it crashed, or how many people were on board. The plane flew directly over the nation's capital, though it was technically flying above some of the most heavily restricted airspace in the nation. The official U.S. Report confirmed to the Associated Press that the military aircraft had scrambled to respond to the small plane. The official was not authorized to publicly discuss details of the military operation and spoke on the condition of anonymity. According to the Pentagon, 6 F-16s were immediately deployed to intercept the plane. 2 aircraft from the 113th Fighter Wing out of Joint Base Andrews in Maryland were the first to reach the Cessna to begin its attempts to contact the pilot. 2 F-16s out of New Jersey and 2 from South Carolina also responded to the incident. Flight tracking sites showed the plane suffered a rapid spiraling descent, dropping at one point at a rate of more than 30,000 feet per minute before crashing into the St. Mary's Wilderness. The North American Aerospace Defense Command later said in a statement that the military aircraft were authorized to travel at supersonic speeds, which caused the sonic boom. In Fairfax, Virginia, Travis Thornton was settled on a couch next to his wife and had just begun recording himself playing guitar and harmonica when they were startled by a loud rumble and rattling that could be heard on the video. Virginia State Police and officers were notified of the potential crash shortly before the 4 p.m., and rescuers reached the crash site by foot around 4 hours later. No survivors were found, the police said. The plane that crashed was registered to Encore Motors of Melbourne Incorporated, which is based in Florida. John Rumpel, who runs the company, told the New York Times, a former newspaper, that his daughter, 2-year-old granddaughter, and nanny, and the pilot were aboard the plane. They were returning to their home in East Hampton on Long Island after visiting his house in North Carolina, he said. Which, I mean, Elizabethton is not far from North Carolina, so that checks. Rumpel, a pilot, told the newspaper he didn't have much information from authorities, but suggested the plane could have lost pressurization. Mogwai says the plane was unresponsive, but still more coherent than the Biden White House. Yeah, that rectangle is always there. Like because this is a recycle of my video game stream. So like when I'm playing a video game, I've got a tagline from the game in that spot, in that space. But I've not quite figured out what to do with that for contemporary. But yes, that big rectangle is always there. Rumpel said he didn't have much information from authorities, but suggested the plane could have lost pressurization. It descended at 20,000 feet per minute. No one could survive a crash from that speed, Rumpel told the newspaper. A woman who identified herself as Barbara Rumpel, listed as the president of the company, said she had no comment on Sunday when reached by the Associated Press. The episode brought back memories of the 1999 crash of a Learjet that lost cabin pressure and flew aimlessly across the country, with professional golfer Payne Stewart aboard. The jet crashed in South Dakota, pasture, and 6 people died. President Biden was playing golf at Joint Base Andrews around the time the fighter jets took off. Which is funny because I was told that President Biden never plays golf and that he's always at work. And only evil orange presidents play golf. So, that is what they have for that. Some more video here for this. CBS News. Reporting on unresponsive plane prompts military response. Let's listen to a little bit of this.
That shook entire neighborhoods. 6 F-16 jets scrambled to intercept a small plane that had entered restricted airspace after making a strange U-turn. Federal investigators say the plane, a Cessna business jet, eventually crashed in northern Virginia after flying over Washington, D.C. It appears there were no survivors. Jeff Begaze is in Greenville, Virginia, not far from this crash site. Jeff, good morning. Seems like a very sad story. What are we learning?
Well, good morning, Tony. This is where that search was focused overnight. You can see behind me, it's a fairly rural area, and so investigators and search crews really didn't have a lot of light to work with as they were searching for that plane. We know this morning that there were 4 people on board the plane, and fighter jets were scrambled when the people on board did not respond to air traffic control. The cause of the crash remains under investigation, but today military officials insist that they did not shoot down that plane. A sonic boom startled the DC.
So that adds a degree of difficulty to things. So let's look at a couple things here. I didn't even think about trying to figure out why this went well, let's look at the map, and then also the idea that the military had to clarify that they didn't shoot down the plane. So let's grab our handy dandy map here. So there's North Carolina, there's Tennessee right there. So Elizabethton is in this area. Right here. They said that the people came from North Carolina. They didn't say where in North Carolina they started from, but they did come starting from North Carolina. Johnson City. So they took off from here, went up to DC, but then this turned around and crashed back in Virginia. I guess I wasn't thinking too much about this because I thought to myself, oh, the sonic boom was turned into Maryland, but I mean, it flew over the Capitol, turned around, and went back to Virginia for reasons that I can't explain. I want to look at, where's the forest that they found this? George Washington Forest. Pull a second map over here. Wow, if that's particularly true, they got a good ways then after they got out from DC. So we're going to look at this map again. Remember, they're starting from here, Johnson City. Those of you on Instagram watching the replay are not going to see what we're looking at over here, but you didn't see the video either, so and didn't hear any of the sonic boom or anything else we've already watched. But we're starting here from Johnson City all the way up, and they said particularly it flew over DC, which means it flew over, and they said it flew over the Capitol building too, which is Capitol Hill is right here. So they didn't necessarily get particularly far into DC. They at least got to Capitol Hill over here. And then, yes, turned around and got all the way back here, which they did just about get to West Virginia. But somehow they were unresponsive from here to here. I understand that planes fly fast. But that is 150 miles that they made it with an unresponsive pilot after taking a U-turn over DC. There is something weird about this. I don't know what it is, but there is something really, really, really off about this. I wish I knew what it was. Like, if you're telling me that somebody went radio silent over DC because of a cabin pressure loss after doing a UE in DC, I would expect maybe Front Royal, Manassas, Warrenton or Washington maybe. Not clear the hell down just about to West Virginia. Something is weird here. Like, they're so far away that I don't think that they heard the sonic boom where the crash was. I didn't catch that when I was prepping this. So, yeah, there's that avenue to things. We've got National Traffic and Safety Board, excuse me, for stuttering like Biden, an official describing what he saw at the crash. There do not appear to be any pictures of the crash released to the public yet, but he's going to describe what he saw, so let's have a listen to that.
It was the boom heard far and wide across the Washington, D.C. region, disrupting a Sunday music rehearsal and sending people and pets running for cover. The cause? US-16 fighter jets scrambled to reach a Cessna Citation private jet, unresponsive and flying through tightly controlled Washington, D.C. airspace. According to FlightAware, the civilian aircraft took off from Elizabethton Municipal Airport in Elizabethton, Tennessee at 1:13 p.m. and was bound for Long Island MacArthur Airport in New York. The plane, with 4 people on board, then turned around over Long Island, heading back over the Washington, D.C. area, nearly 2 hours after it originally took off. That's when NORAD scrambled the F-16s, who were authorized to travel in supersonic speeds in pursuit of the jet. According to a news release from the continental U.S. North American Aerospace Defense Command region, the pilot of the civilian aircraft was unresponsive as the F-16 fighter jets attempted to make contact. At one point, according to the statement, the F-16s used flares in an attempt to draw attention from the pilot. The Cessna 560 Citation 5, traveling more than 300 miles off course, going off radar at 3:23 p.m., and ultimately crashing in a rural, mountainous terrain near George Washington National Forest near Charlottesville, Virginia. Late Sunday, according to a statement from Virginia State Police, first responders reached the crash site by foot, but found no survivors.
What's up, bud? Are you okay?
A Florida mom stopped by a relative's home to quickly grab something inside, while her...
Alright, that story didn't make the cut for the day, by the way. So that made it even weirder. Okay, so I have way more questions. Now it turns out that this guy got got to Long Island. And then turned around and went back. And was unresponsive, radio silent over DC. Anybody? I don't know what to make out of this. Mogwai says, a guy playing harmonica and guitar. Get his video on the wire for all the news sources. Let's see. 80s Kid says, Google says the sonic boom is caused by the aircraft flying at supersonic speed, so I was out saying the crash caused by the boom. Yeah, they talked about that earlier on. No, a sonic boom is when something accelerates past the speed of sound. It when an object goes past what the speed of sound waves is, it causes a ripple through the air that goes around there. That causes a sonic boom. So no, the Cessna didn't reach supersonic speed. The jets that were going out there to try to respond to it were the ones that made the sonic boom. CNN reporting pilot of unresponsive private jet that crashed and killed 4 was seen slumped over, sources say. From Pete Muntean, Elizabeth Wolfe, Natasha Bertrand, Haley Britsky, Brian Todd, and Lauren Koenig. The pilot of the unresponsive private jet that triggered an interception by supersonic military fighter jets protecting DC was observed slumped over in his seat, a source familiar with the response told CNN. Unnamed, of course. The lone pilot and 3 passengers were aboard the Cessna Citation that crashed in a heavily wooded area near Waynesboro, Virginia, the FAA said on Monday. Another source told CNN the crash investigators were interested in hypoxia, a shortage of oxygen in the blood, as a reason why the pilot and passengers didn't respond to attempts by air traffic controllers and even other civilian aircraft to contact the ill-fated plane. Hypoxia is an insidious risk of flying at high altitude and could have been brought on by a decompression in the Cessna. In its pressurized cabin, aviation experts say the flight was cruising from East Tennessee to Long Island at about 34,000 feet, an altitude where pilots have 30 to 60 seconds to don oxygen masks when pressure drops or risk falling unconscious. When the F-16s reached the Cessna around 3:20, the jet pilot set off flares in an effort to get the pilot's attention. A Sunday news release from the continental U.S. North American Aerospace Defense Command region said the pilot was unresponsive and the Cessna subsequently crashed near the George Washington forest. Near the rugged scene, the NTSB investigator in charge, Adam Gerhardt, told reporters the agency's probe will ask, when exactly did the pilot become unresponsive, and why did the airplane fly the flight track that it did fly? The Cessna left a crater in the ground, no survivors, and few clues as to why it went down, officials said on Monday. 4 first responders who spoke on the condition of anonymity described a grisly scene at the crash site. There were perhaps 4 recognizable pieces of wreckage from the plane which they believe impacted the ground at a very steep angle. There was nothing really bigger than your arm, said one. They also found signs of human remains. The plane was not required to carry black boxes, but investigators will still search for them in hopes that they were installed. So, I have a lot of questions. Again, because of where this happened, how this happened, and the U-turn is what gets me. And then furthermore, finding out that they got almost all the way to destination, then turned around and tried to go all the way back, also gets me. And the fact that the pilot was unresponsive over DC, but still managed to get another 150 miles away and crash at a very steep angle. Like he just all of a sudden dropped off and went down. So many questions. So much that I can't identify with this. This is an odd one. From Fox, and then The Wire will take it one step further. Prominent Florida family linked to plane that flew over DC crashed in Virginia mountains. From Steven Soares. A prominent Florida businessman and his wife, an NRA executive committee member, say their daughter and granddaughter were among the 4 killed on board a Cessna jet that flew over restricted airspace in DC before crashing in the mountains of Virginia on Sunday. Barbara Rumpel, who has served on the NRA's Women's Leadership Forum, reacted Sunday in a Facebook post for an NRA event, writing, "My family is gone. My daughter and granddaughter." On Monday morning, her Facebook page was no longer publicly available. John Rumpel, who runs a Florida-based company, Encore Motors of Melbourne, to which the crash plane was reportedly registered, told the New York Times, a former newspaper, that his daughter, 2-year-old granddaughter, and nanny and the pilot were aboard the plane. He said that they were returning to their home in East Hampton on Long Island after visiting his house in North Carolina. John Rumpel also lost his daughter, Victoria, at age 19 in a 1994 scuba diving accident. The couple named the assistant living home Victoria's Landing in Melbourne after Victoria, according to the facility's website. A pilot himself, John Rumpel, told the newspapers he had little information about what happened, but suggested the plane could have lost pressurization, which led to the erratic flight path and crash. That wasn't an erratic flight path, though. That's what gets me. The U-turn was erratic, but it was a straight line after that. How can you trademark "I have questions"? I mean, if I do keep up Saying that, I think on this show, we might have to change contemporary to I have questions. Or maybe we'll launch something conspiracy related, although that I can't do that every week right now. Or every day or anything else like that. Do a deep dive into a story like this and say, hey, I've got questions. The Daily Wire taking this subject a step further. Prominent MAGA donor says entire family killed in Virginia plane crash. From Brandon Dre. Funnily enough, none of these other articles above here actually mention the fact that this was a MAGA person. Which was what initially pulled my interest in this story. A major donor to former President Trump identified himself as the small aircraft owner that entered a no-fly zone over D.C. on Sunday and later crashed in Southwest Virginia. Let's see. Owned by Florida businessman and prominent MAGA donor John Rumpel. Rumpel, owner of Encore Motors, told the Post that his entire family, including his daughter Adina Azarian, his 2-year-old grandchild, and her nanny were on board the jet when it crashed in a sparsely populated area near Montebello. We know nothing about the crash, he said. We're talking to the FAA now. I've got to keep the line clear. I don't think they found the wreckage yet, Rumpel told the New York Times. It descended at 20,000 feet per minute, and nobody could survive a crash at that speed. Virginia State Police told the local media authorities found no survivors at the crash site. Rumpel reportedly said his family was returning to their home in East Hampton on Long Island after visiting his house in North Carolina, departing from an airport in East Tennessee. Rumpel had been a staunch Trump supporter and has reportedly donated approximately $250,000 to the former president's campaign in 2020. Rumpel's wife Barbara served on Trump's Second Amendment coalition, representing the NRA Women's Leadership Forum. So, interesting. I do question whether or not this was sending a message. I have a hard time not putting that out there and just saying. You've got a plane. No information on the pilot or the nanny, by the way. We hear, yes, daughter and granddaughter, but we know nothing about the nanny and the pilot. Gets almost to its destination, whips a Huey, flies over the Capitol again. Pilot is apparently slumped over in his chair after making a Huey and flying in a straight line. And again, getting almost 200 miles away before crashing into the forest. Silentcaster says, what does MTG have to say about this? And Mogwai says, Marjorie Taylor Greene just submitted articles of impeachment against the Cessna and Sonic Boom. So, very, very interesting situation. A lot of stuff here. I mean, what have we been? 48 minutes just talking about that? Well, maybe not 48, but probably a good 40 just talking about that. And nothing else, but I mean, we've still got more to go, so let's move into presidential politics. So, surprising nobody and standing, oddly enough, after everything we just heard, in front of an NRA banner. This happened before today. This was reported on June 4th, which was yesterday. Pence readies for Trump showdown as 2024 launch approaches. Tweeted out from the Hill. Let's listen. The Marimba! Pence readies for a Trump showdown as 2024 launch approaches. When then Vice President Pence spoke outside Baltimore at the 2020 RNC. So are we not going to hear from Pence? Or is this just going to be the Hill playing the marimba? I don't know, but I'm turning that down. Because if that's loud in my ears, that sucks for you guys. He will make the case that he, not Trump, deserves 4 more years in the White House. Yeah, this is just going to be them with the marimba. I'm sorry, I thought that was going to be him talking. That was my bad. But since yesterday, he has done it. It's official. He's in. From the Associated Press, former Vice President Pence files paperwork launching 2024 presidential bid in challenge to Trump. From Jill Colvin. Former Vice President Pence filed paperwork on Monday declaring his campaign for president in 2024, setting up a challenge to his former boss, Trump, in just 2 years after their time in the White House ended with a selfie fest at the U.S. Capitol, and Pence, who was not fleeing for his life, stopped propagandizing, Associated Press. Pence, the nation's 48th vice president, will formally launch his bid for the Republican nomination with a video and a kickoff event in Des Moines on Wednesday, which is his 64th birthday. According to people familiar with his plans, he made the candidacy official Monday with the FEC. While the Donald is currently leading the early fight for the nomination, with Ron DeSantis polling consistently in second by 40 points, Pence supporters see a lane for a reliable conservative who espouses many of the previous admin's policies but without the constant tumult. So, if they're looking for somebody who espouses many of the previous admin's policies, why the hell are they going with Pence? Well, he frequently lauds the accomplishments of the Trump-Pence administration, which was never called the Trump-Pence administration. It's not like the Biden-Harris admin. A Pence nomination, in many ways, would be a return to positions long associated with the Republican establishment, but abandoned as Trump reshaped the party in his image. And that, by the way, is why Pence will lose. That's actually the same reason that DeSantis will lose. Whether he takes the nomination or not, that's the reason he'll lose. Pence has warned against the growing populist tide of the party, and advisors see him as the only traditional Reagan-style conservative in the race. You mean Bush-style conservative in the race. A staunch opponent of abortion rights, Pence supports the national ban on the procedure and has campaigned against transgender-affirming policies in schools. He has argued that changes to Social Security and Medicare, like raising the age for qualification, should be on the table to keep the programs solvent, which both Trump and DeSantis have opposed, and criticized DeSantis for this escalating feud with Disney. He also said the U.S. should offer more support to the Ukraine against Russian aggression, while admonishing the Putin apologists in the party unwilling to stand up to the Russian leader. So right there, off the bat, we have fail. We have a Bushite, staunch opponent of abortion rights, which W was not. I want to put that right out there. W did not give a flying fuck, excuse my language, about abortion rights. Never once did he, but that was a show that he put on to get the Christians and evangelicals up there to come back and vote for him. But W did not care about abortion rights. Neither, by the way, do most of the Democrat politicians who are railing to get them reinstated. It's something to pull the progressive base on board with them. There is no greater gift that you can give to the party, capital T, capital P, than the next generation. So once your communism and socialism are instated, abortion is going to go out the window in a hurry. That is something, by the way, that all you little progressives should keep in mind while you're doing this. But we've got Evangelo Khan, Bushite. Let's throw more money at war. We've got to be more at war, and we've got to stand up to We've got to stand up to Putin. We've got to stand up to insert generic enemy here. Basically citing all the reasons that Trump won and everybody else on the field in 2016 lost. Because the other 16 candidates, with the possible slight exception of Cruz, oddly enough, we're all in the same boat as what Pence is trying to do right now. A thing that I will remind you is that the base of the Republican Party right now is not conservative. And they haven't been for a long time. Since 2015 at least, although some of the sentiment was starting to dry up out of the party during the Romney years. A reminder that the probably vast majority of MAGA Trump supporting Republicans who will not vote for Mike Pence, partially because of what Trump has told them about Mike Pence and what he's told them to believe, because there is a religious aspect to the Trump presidency. There is very, very much a religious aspect to that. But also based on the fact that they didn't want another Bush when they came over from the party. If they thought the Republican Party was going to throw up another Bush, they would have stayed voting for Democrats and get betrayed by Democrats over and over again. And this is my observation and interactions with the Republican Party post-Trump, is the fact that 70 to 80% of them have a hashtag walkaway video that started either in the very, very late part of the Obama years or the very early part of the Trump campaign. They all made up their hashtag walkaway story, and they told their story on Facebook or on YouTube. Fewer of them on Twitter. But they told their walkaway story at that point because they all used to be Democrats. And if you think that you can package up another W and hand that person to people who, many of whom protested against W, you are out of your mind. 100% out of your mind. Pence's team sees Iowa and its evangelical Christian voters as critical to his potential path to victory. Advisors say he plans to campaign aggressively in the state, hitting every one of its 99 counties before its first-in-the-nation caucuses next year. The campaign is expected to lean heavily on town halls and retail stops, aimed at reintroducing Pence to voters who know him only from his time as Trump's second-in-command. Pence served for more than a decade in Congress and as Indiana's governor before he was tapped as Trump's running mate in 2016. So, Mike Pence is in. I'm going to skip this one. We're going to go over to Rolling Stone one, just because I thought this was interesting, the fact that Rolling Stone is throwing a rope to Trump at this one. From Rolling Stone, Pence files a bid to get humiliated by Trump again. From Ryan Bort. Mike Pence on Monday filed paperwork to run for president in 2024, entering a crowded field of Republican hopefuls that includes Trump, the man who cheered on a mob chanted for the former vice president to be hanged on January 6, 2021. No, Trump did not chant for Pence to be hanged. Those were federal agents. Pence filing his paperwork with the FEC is no surprise. He's been long circling a White House run and is expected to formally announce his candidacy on Wednesday ahead of a CNN town hall hosted by Jake Tapper. No! You both have bad ideas on this one. Can we get Mitt Romney to do another run? No, absolutely not. And Linda Graham. We need more people from South Carolina in the race. We already have Lindsey Graham in the race. He's called Mike Pence. Maybe Palin should get in. Palin I wouldn't be 100% opposed to. Palin is very, very populistic. I don't think she can win. Because all they'll do is recycle all the old Jenna Marbles jokes about Sarah Palin from 2012 and just go tell them again. Pence has a lot of work to do if he expects to secure the Republican nomination. He won't, by the way. Trump still has a firm grip on the hearts and minds of conservative voters. No, he has a strong, firm grip on the hearts and minds of the recent converts to the Republican Party that people like you at Rolling Stone hate, because they hold up a mirror to the ugliest parts of you. That's been one of the biggest problems that Democrats have had with Trump voters, because, again, number one, a lot of them came from the Democrat Party, and a lot of them still act like Democrats. I will probably not vote in 2024, and I'm going to be completely honest about that. There is a very, very low likelihood that I go vote in that election. Did I lose connection? Looks like I lost all my viewers just a moment ago. I don't know. But the news stops for nobody, so we got to keep going. Pence has name recognition, and far-right Christians love his push for a national ban on abortion, which, by the way, is why he loses. But he's a villain in MAGA circles for failing to illegally overturn the results of the 2020 election because Rolling Stone has to editorialize. Maybe our supporters have the right idea, Trump remarked as Capitol rioters called for Pence's execution. Following the refusal, according to the January 6th committee, Mike Pence deserves it. That was heavily editorialized. And heavily edited, too, by the way. But even Rolling Stone saying, hey, Trump has the opportunity to embarrass him again. Here we can talk about somebody who won't be getting into the field from the Associated Press. Governor Sununu rules out 2024 presidential bid, warns that crowded GOP field helps Trump. Well, he had to be right about something. He really is taking New Hampshire in the wrong direction, but he had to be right about something. From Steve Peoples. Chris Sununu said Monday he will not seek the presidency in 2024, arguing that Republicans with no path to victory must have the courage to get out of their party's increasingly crowded primary to stop former President Trump. The 40-year-old governor, who has emerged as a frequent Trump critic, made the announcement on CNN and followed up with a social media post and an op-ed in the Washington Post. I will not seek the Republican nomination for president in 2024, Sununu tweeted. The stakes are too high for a crowded field to hand the nomination to a candidate who earns just 35% of the vote. And I will help to ensure that this does not happen. Sununu was among a small group of Republicans, officials still openly contemplating a presidential bid. Even with his decision, the 24 GOP White House field will be large. Earlier Monday, Mike Pence filed paperwork. He joined a field that includes Trump, DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Asa Hutchinson. Chris Christie plans to launch his own campaign on Tuesday evening in New Hampshire, and North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum will announce his bid Wednesday in Fargo. Sununu said he would endorse the GOP's ultimate nominee in 2024, but argued in the op-ed that Republican must embrace a course correction away from Trump. Okay, but what if the nominee is Trump? If he is the nominee, Republicans will lose again, just like we did in 2018, 2020, and 2022. This is indisputable. And I'm not willing to let that happen without a fight, Sununu wrote, charging that Trump failed to deliver on promises to drain the swamp, secure the border, and instill fiscal discipline while in office. Well, you're wrong, Sununu, on one of those counts. 2 of those he's right on. He didn't drain the swamp, he swam in it, and fiscal discipline, that was the reason that I almost didn't vote for him in 2020. Oh yeah, Larry Elder didn't make that list, did he? He also noted Trump's many legal challenges, honk honk. Trump's team has been delighted by the size of the Republican presidential field, believing that more candidates are the easiest path that he'll have to the party's nomination. In 2016, Trump was able to win New Hampshire's first in the nation presidential primary, with just 35% of the vote because more than half dozen Republican opponents divided up the remainder. Well, again, he's got to be right about something, and he's not right very often. Nikki Haley's town hall in 180 seconds with video. So Nikki Haley had a town hall, I believe on Sunday, and nobody knew about it because Nikki Haley is an also-ran who's not going to be the president. Well, Politico summed it down into 3 minutes. So let's listen.
Former President Trump has refused to say whether he believes Russia should win the war. Ron DeSantis referred to Russia's invasion of Ukraine as a, quote, territorial dispute. What do you think of that?
I think that that's a mistake that too many have made. That's exactly what got the Europeans in this position with Russia in the first place. And for them to sit there and say that this is a territorial dispute, that's just not the case. To say that we should stay neutral, it is in the best interest of America. It's in the best interest of our national security for Ukraine to win.
It's in the best interest for Raytheon for Ukraine to win.
On Friday, Mr. Trump congratulated Kim Jong-un because North Korea had ascended to a leadership role in the World Health Organization. Were you uncomfortable with how Mr. Trump dealt with and how his attitude was towards Kim Jong-un while you worked at the UN?
I mean, Kim Jong-un is a thug. There's nothing good or decent about Kim Jong-un. There's no reason we should ever congratulate the fact that they are now vice chair of the World Health Organization. And it goes to the fact that also the World Health Organization is a farce to start with. We saw that during COVID. I am unapologetically pro-life. Having said that, I don't judge anyone for being pro-choice any more than I want them to judge me for being pro-life. I think that there is a federal role for this. But if we're going to do that, you have...
That's not what the Supreme Court said.
to be honest with the American people of what it takes to do that. We haven't had 60 pro-life senators in over 100 years. We might have 45. So if you look at it from that standpoint, don't let anyone in the media, don't let any political party tell you that a Republican president can ban abortion laws in our country, because they can't any more than a Democrat president can ban our state laws.
If a 6-week ban theoretically came to your desk, would you sign it?
But why? I will answer that when you ask Kamala and Biden if they would agree to 37 weeks, 38 weeks, 39 weeks. Then I'll answer your question.
What meaningful steps would you take to prevent mass shootings in soft target areas such as schools? Secure
our schools. There should be one point of entry. There should be a law enforcement officer at every school. We should make sure there's the clear bulletproof tape that we have at courthouses and airports. We should have that on our schools to protect them. And we should have a mental health counselor at every single school, not a guidance counselor, but a mental health counselor.
Some states have been experimenting with red flag laws. Is that something that you might support?
No, I don't trust government to deal with red flag laws. I don't trust that they won't take them away from people who rightfully deserve to have them. The fact that we have gender pronoun classes in the military.
Well, again, Nikki Haley can't be wrong all the time. Most of the time she is, but she can't be wrong all the time. That was a very good point. That was a base point.
Military now. I mean, all of these things that are pushing what a small minority want on the majority of Americans, it's too much. It's too much. I mean, the idea that we have biological boys playing in girls' sports, it is the women's issue of our time.
Is there room for the humanity of these young people in this debate?
We need to take care of these kids. We do need to be humane about it. But now, what about the idea that this girl in New Hampshire that I talked to, she's a senior in high school, and she said, every class they talk about transgenderism. And she said, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells because we'll be canceled if we say anything about it. That's what I'm talking about. It has overtaken the entire conversation.
There you go. And that was more than 180 seconds, by the way. That was 204 seconds. Which was probably 180 seconds of Nikki Haley being wrong and 24 seconds of Nikki Haley being right. Which makes up probably a greater ratio of wrong to right, or right to wrong, I should say, than what she is normally. Axios with a recap. Nikki Haley takes aim at Trump and DeSantis during CNN town hall, from Rebecca Falconer over at Axios. Nikki Haley criticized former President Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis several times during her town hall in Des Moines on Sunday evening. Haley, who served as an ambassador to the UN during the Trump admin, said her Republican presidential rivals are not being honest with the American people on entitlement reform. We can't just keep kicking this can down the road, said the former South Carolina governor, who supports changing the retirement age for Americans who are now in their 20s, to CNN's Jake Tapper. That is going to be the death nail in the Haley campaign right there. And I know that Trump and DeSantis have both said that we're not going to deal with entitlement reform. Well, all you're doing is leaving it for the next president, and that's leaving a lot of Americans in trouble. Which is a fair point from Nikki Haley. But the reality of the political situation we're in right now is that our friends in the Democrat Party have made the idea of going to entitlement reform so poisonous, anybody who comes out against it might as well just drop out of the race. Trump has warned Republicans to avoid making any immediate changes to Medicare and Social Security, though his admin did not plan to cut food stamp benefits before a judge blocked the move. Did plan to cut benefits before a judge blocked the move on October of 2020. DeSantis' campaign declined to comment on his stance on Social Security and Medicare earlier this year after CNN reviewed remarks he made in his first congressional campaign in 2012, saying he would embrace proposals to privatize them. Haley broke with Trump's stance on Russia. The former president said at a CNN town hall last month he'd negotiate with both sides to end the war. Well, right, but ending the war doesn't fill Nikki Haley's pocketbook. Remember, this is a war con. This is a neocon. It's in the best interest for our national security for Ukraine to win, she said. Because of course it is. Haley said at the town hall, Americans are tired of divisive politics and want to see a government work for them again. Except for me, I don't want to see a government work for me. I want the government as far out of my life as I can. Haley also doubled down on previous remarks that she would defund sanctuary cities and reinstate the Trump-era Remain in Mexico program. So, I mean, Nikki Haley is exactly what we were told that she was going to be. Further going on with this clip here.
I think we can all come together and say any woman that has an abortion shouldn't be jailed or given the death penalty. Can't we start there? Can't we start there? Because what? I think we can all come together and say any woman that has an abortion shouldn't be jailed or given the death penalty. Can't we start there? Can't we start there? Because what? I think we can all.
I'm in favor of that. I understand that it's murder. I do. And I know that a lot of the more conservatives want to go back and retroactively punish women who have done that, which is also, I mean, these people are out of their mind. You can't retro punish somebody for something that was legal at the time. '80s Kid says, did she say she wants abortion at 38 weeks? The baby's fully formed by that point. I say no way to that. It's 12 weeks in the UK and Europe. And Castor reminding her, no, she wants Biden-Harris to ask her questions about 38 weeks. Because that's the point that they have. That's like 38 weeks is crowning. In 99.999% of cases. So she wants them to answer questions about the fact that they want it up until the point of, well, birth and sometimes after. No, I don't think that women should be jailed for this, so. But that's the easy way out. And if you're trying to come back to a churchy evangelical Republican Party of your father's era, there's no place for that. Guy Foe says, Nikki Haley taking a bold stance on something that only happens in terrible feminist dystopian fiction. The Handmaid's Tale. Which, by the way, before election season, I'm going to read that terrible book. Because I know that we're going to be talking about Gilead again. If the Donald gets back into office or even gets close to the nomination. So I kind of want to see just what these people are trying to compare us all to. Let's talk a bit about Trump, because that is going to be affecting how we do things. Coming up in the next one. From the Hill, Watergate prosecutor on Trump classified documents investigation. I think he's toast. So a Democrat prosecutor who went after another Republican candidate for the audacity to win re-election thinks that this one, who stands outside the Uniparty, is toast. That seems incredibly objective, don't you think? From Sarah Fortinsky. Former Watergate prosecutor Jill Wine Banks said she thinks former President Trump is toast after prosecutors secured a tape recording of Trump discussing what seemed to be classified material on a potential military strike in Iran. Yeah, I kind of need to hear that classified material in order to believe it's true, because, and again, this goes right along with the original classified documents, and the reason that so many leftoids on Twitter, I know, Soundcaster, you hate Twitter. I still use it, so. But the reason so many leftoids on Twitter get so mad and angry about the fact that you bring up what was in the documents, or ask them to show the documents. The documents that were laid out for the convenient photo op that had the, this is a highly classified document, and the white paper over them, that could be Melania's chicken Kiev recipe, for all that we know. They can come back and say whatever is in those documents that they want to, and the leftoids, the ignorant people on the left, who weren't going to vote for Trump anyway, will run with it and eat it up. I need to hear what's in this tape before I believe you that that's what this is. Because government, you've lied to me before. With a smile on your face. WMDs. It's only going to be a defensive war. More recently. Nobody under $400,000. You've lied to me before with a smile on your face, government, so if you want me to believe what you have there, I'm going to need to hear this tape. And of course, Wine Banks did this on MSNBC. Totally objective there. These people think we buy this shit, by the way. I'm wearing a toast pin today because I think he's toast. Oh my god. Somebody get an ambulance over here. I might cringe myself to that. For that. Wow. Oh my god. Where do they find these people? That's almost as bad as Thomas Massey walking around with a pin with a live counter for the U.S. national debt on his shirt, and then voting to raise the debt limit still. Wow. I might actually die from cringe from that. Wow. These are not serious people. I can't read this anymore. DeSantis, some Florida news. Not necessarily campaign news, but something that will come up in the debates, I promise you. DeSantis suspends North Miami Beach mayor arrested on illegal voting charges. From Phil Prezan. I gotta sit down one day and read the Florida Constitution. Because I want to see what all provisions that they have in the Florida Constitution that lets the governor act like a dictator. Going against the will of the people of the individual districts and going against federalism. There's a big reason that I don't like DeSantis. And it's not for the fact that some of these people didn't need to go, but the fact of the matter is, it's between their constituents and the politician. It's a really difficult spot for me to be in when he comes out and does this stuff, because I like what he's doing, but I hate the methodology by which he's doing it. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has suspended North Miami Beach Mayor Anthony DeFilippo less than a week after DeFilippo's arrest on illegal voting charges. DeSantis on Monday signed an EO immediately suspending DeFilippo, who was arrested Wednesday in Miami-Dade on 3 counts of an unqualified elector willfully voting, a third-degree felony. It is in the best interests of the residents of the city of North Miami Beach and the citizens of the state of Florida that Anthony F. DeFilippo II be immediately suspended from the public office, which he now holds, DeSantis wrote in the executive order. Okay. Maybe I don't need to read the Constitution because they're going to lay it out for me right here. Under the Florida Constitution, the governor has the authority to suspend local elected officials from office or for malfeasance, neglect of duty, drunkenness, incompetence, inability to perform official duties, or commission of a felony. The Florida Senate will later judge whether DeFilippo will be reinstated or removed from office. I got my answer. Right there. The mayor's attorney, Mike Pizzi, wrote on NBC6 the mayor expects to be fully exonerated from these politically motivated false charges and is anxious to get his day in court. The mayor has always fought corruption in his city. Not well, apparently. I've heard stories from Miami. And has never been charged with abusing his office. The sole allegation that he voted in the wrong district is misguided, and it's shameful the state attorney's using her office to intercede in politics. In the meantime, DeFilippo is banned from performing any official act, duty, or function, a public office, or getting paid from the city. Okay, so asked and answered. I still want to look into the Constitution and see that, but All right, we're going to flip this to the other side of the aisle now and talk about the Biden admin and their propaganda wing. The first, token diversity hire, getting in on this. ASIN tweeting out, token diversity hire, TDH. We're just going to listen to this one and hear the citation that she uses.
He really had one of the best midterm outcome for a new Democratic president in 60 years. In 60 years. And so, look, I'll leave you with a quote here. Here's something that I think that was said a couple days ago. It's a Huffington Post headline. After calling Joe Biden senile, Republicans complain he outsmarted them. I'll leave it there. Okay.
But to follow up on
Nobody is complaining that Joe Biden outsmarted him. No Republican thinks that Joe Biden outsmarted them. They think they got sold down the river by McCarthy, which they did. Joe Biden didn't outsmart anybody. This was the plan going in. You get one pretty bill that does everything that Republicans want, and then you don't get that bill. Instead, you get the piece of crap that we got. The Fiscal Irresponsibility Act. Nobody thinks that Biden outsmarted Republicans. If anything, they think that McCarthy outdid them. I'm kind of curious to see if he does get ousted. Now, right now, they're saying that there's no possibility he gets ousted, but I don't know. I think at least the vote is being called at some point in the near future here. We've got these two dweebs. They're a little bit more calm in the next one, which I think, because this one is first, and I think their Ritalin started wearing off before they got to the second one. But I've watched the gyrating. I've not listened to the words yet, so let's listen to what these two morons have to say.
What's up, everybody? We're at the White House. I'm here with Chris. Beautiful day, beautiful event. And I just want to remind everybody, especially the Republicans, that Gen Z and the Democrats are going to make sure that Biden gets a second term and we hold on to this building in 2024. What's up?
Why? He's not a progressive. He's a warmongering neoliberal. But they don't care. They're paid to tweet. And the second one, after the speech. I don't know why the other one didn't have his phone on him.
So we just watched President Biden speak at the White House, and I have never been more confident that this guy needs to be reelected in 2024. He's smart, he's quick-witted, he knows what's best for America, and he fights for the people. And so myself, Chris, and the rest of Gen Z are ready for 2024 and to fight to put him back in the Oval Office. Let's go. So we just...
Okay, I'm going to have to go watch that speech because anything else that I hear from Biden is... Hey, Meg, Ultra Mega! Spoiler alert, I anticipate this speech to be the same thing. But again, these two morons are paid six figures, by the way. $200,000 apiece, it's reported, to pour the stupidity out there. Alright, what else do we have? The glow is strong with this one. With Krasenstein already coming out and talking about the glow. At some point, I think that they're just doing this. And yes, this is an FBI op. So they can come out and say, conspiracy theories! Brian Krasenstein tweets out, yesterday, a group of white supremacists gathered outside the downtown area of Centerville, Texas, as seen below. Today, conservatives are claiming they were really feds and FBI agents since they're in shape. Newsflash, white supremacy exists. Nobody denies that, by the way. We've all seen Fuentes. There are bad people who push bad agendas. Being in shape is not a disqualifying trait of white supremacist. Stop trying to conspiracy theory away racism and hate. Why don't you all spend your time trying to marginalize these hate groups rather than pretending they don't exist? To which I will counter. Number one, we have got a group of, there was a lady involved in there, but mostly gentlemen, that are all jacked to the bones, with the exception of this one, probably an analyst, but are for the most part all jacked to the bones in a uniform with fresh creases on their flags. Dude, laundromats exist. Wash and tumble dry your flag before you come out to the event. I have Confederate flags. I used them as a statement against the hell that I went through in Massachusetts while I was still living there. There wasn't a racist thing by any stretch of the imagination. But mine at least got washed every once in a while and tumble dried. Like, these were picked up from Amazon and taken out of the package to be put onto the flagpole and do this photo op. And the big thing that gets me is that as far as like what these guys are saying is, well, being in shape is not a disqualifier from being a white supremacist. Krasenstein, you're I think the person who coined the phrase Meal Team 6. So when we've got a bunch of jack dudes standing out here, covering their faces, no tattoos visible, which I don't know if you've ever met a real white supremacist, an Aryan Nation Brotherhood person, but they are covered in swastikas. In fact, by the way, that was the leading reason that you thought that the moron in Dallas was such a white supremacist, because he had a brand new, fresh swastika on his chest right before he went and did this. Yes, there are white supremacist groups out there. These people are not that group. These people are a bunch of feds who are either out there to fuel, hey, look at all the conspiracy theorists, these evil Republicans who deny white supremacy exists. Or something for Biden to use in his next speech when he's coherent and say, hey, there's white supremacy around every corner, man. They're whites under the bed, and I'm the only one who can protect you. Which is nothing but rebranded McCarthyism. There's an article that goes with this stupid crap, by the way. It's not from a green check verified source, do keep in mind. I didn't even know. Opoi is the name of the outlet. White supremacists who gathered in Centerville, Texas, called feds and FBI by conspiracy theorists because they are fit. From Rohit Yadav. Residents of Centerville, Texas have expressed their outrage over a recent rally held in the downtown area, organized by a small group of individuals from outside the community. The rally coincided with the one-year anniversary of the tragic incident involving killing of 5 members of a white family by an escaped inmate named Gonzalo Lopez. The group, who chose to conceal their identities behind face masks, claimed to be from various locations across Texas. Okay, if you were close enough to get there and you're really that outraged, pull the goddamn mask off. However, local residents are adamant that their presence does not reflect the values of their community, which is situated between Dallas and Houston. Conspiracy theories have also emerged, with some conservatives suggesting the participants may be federal agents or FBI operatives due to their physical fitness. It's important to note that physical fitness is not indicative of one's association with white supremacist ideologies. The incident has shed light on the existence of white supremacy and the need to address hate groups. It's crucial to confront racism and hatred collectively rather than assigning blame to specific political parties or communities. What a joke. Again. And we've got Marjorie Taylor Greene. Calls for an investigation have been made, including by Marjorie Taylor Greene, to determine the identities of the individuals involved. However, it's essential to approach the situation with caution and allow for a thorough examination of the facts. Now, you just don't want your agents to get caught. Marjorie Taylor Greene tweets out, "I want an investigation into who these people are. This group, just like Patriot Front group that marches in D.C., looks like a Fed operation trying to create racism, white supremacy, and racial division where none exist. Take your mask off, you cowards." Yeah, they're never going to investigate this. Again, we're in a situation where people are getting close enough that they could yank the mask off. There's no counter-protest. There's nobody going to see this or yell back at these people. There's no Antifa. There's no liberals. There's no counter-protest. These are feds. Feds under the bed. Sonic Caster says, to be fair, most 2.5-year-olds can outsmart Republicans, and Biden is slightly more coherent than that. End quote. Repeat the line. '80s Kid says, I want to follow that kid just to see his video where Brandon gets his shit kicked back in. When I was in school in the 80s, racism didn't even exist. In fact, no one ever spoke about racism until the last, I'd say, 10 years, until the media kicked it up from the dust. Yeah, it was pretty well, I think it's been more than 10 years, but not by much. The real kickback to racism happened under the Obama admin. That was the first time it was talked about, and I mean, there are even some, not very many, but there are some black folk who think that Obama destroyed racial relations that we had spent so much time redoing and rebuilding. And yes, there are white supremacist hate groups, but this is not a white supremacist hate group. These are feds. Let's do some January 6th stuff. Just the news, a back-to-back from these two. Doctored evidence. Democrat-led January 6th panel added audio to silent security video for primetime hearings. From John Solomon and Nicholas Balasay. The Democrat-led House Select Committee to investigate January 6th doctored a key piece of its evidence, adding audio to silent U.S. Capitol Police security footage used to create a dramatic video montage for its opening of its primetime hearings last summer. According to Just the News review of the original raw footage and interviews, in at least 2 instances identified by Just the News, the panel sizzle reel that aired live in C-SPAN last June failed to identify that it had overdubbed audio from another unidentified source in the silent footage. Multiple current and former Capitol Police officials, as well as key lawmakers and congressional aides, confirmed that the closed-circuit cameras that captured the video do not record sound, and that it was added afterwards. Interesting. A former spokesman for the January 6th committee told Just the News that the panel was supposed to clearly mark in a video that was dubbed with another audio source, and it did so on some occasions in the sizzle reel. But Just the News identified 2 pieces of Capitol Police closed-circuit television footage, one from inside angle showing the dramatic breach of the key entrance to the Capitol by rioters, and the other an aerial view of the agitated crowd outside from a camera system that Capitol Police officials confirmed did not have sound recording capabilities. Yet the footage shown by the committee inexplicably included sound in the video montage they produced. That video was without any disclaimer showing the audio had been dubbed. And the player is playing those videos, by the way. Spokesmen and other aides for the January 6th committee and its former chairman, Democratic Rep. Benny Thompson, did not return repeated requests for comment on why the two key scenes were dubbed without the public being told. Well, we all know why. Barry Loudermilk of Georgia told Just the News, No Noise Television Friday night, what the American people want to know is the truth, and this was nothing but a Hollywood production. The committee spent $18.5 million, at least that's what we know of, to write a dossier against Trump and create this Hollywood production, and when I looked at the videos, it's clear. It's apparent to me that it is a Capitol Police security film video, and there's no audio whatsoever. And so yes, it was dubbed there for dramatic effect, Loudermilk continued, and that shows what they're trying to do is sway public opinion, not just get the truth out. The full and unadulterated CCTV security footage of the January 6th Selfie Fest is in the possession of the House Admin Committee. Just the News was authorized by Speaker Kevin McCarthy and the committee to review the footage and make copies of any newsworthy moments. On Thursday, Just the News released footage of former Speaker Pelosi's evacuation from the Capitol during the Selfie Fest that showed she let her daughter film the exit Hollywood style, an act the former police chief said was a distraction for her security detail. Yeah, and again, Pelosi was never in any danger. Loudermilk has his own battles with this committee, which falsely accused him of leading a reconnaissance operation inside the Capitol for rioters the day before the attack. Capitol Police concluded the committee's allegation was false, and all the congressman had done was give a tour to constituents in nearby congressional office buildings. So that's one, adding sound to this. But we've got another one here from Just the News. Lawmaker probing January 6 security failures. People of interest may have withheld critical intel. And let's see. This is from John Solomon. The lawmaker leading the investigation into security failures that occurred on the U.S. Capitol during the Selfie Fest says his team identified people of interest who may have played a role in suppressing intelligence that forewarned of violence that fateful day. In a wide-ranging interview, Barry Loudermilk confirmed earlier reporting by Just the News that the Capitol Police Intelligence Unit had received days and weeks in advance a significant amount of detailed intelligence that identified specific extremist groups that plan to commit violence on January 6th and some of the tactics they plan to use. Which, and again, they wanted the violence. But those red flags weren't passed up the chain, including to then Chief Stephen Sund, who, so that executives could adjust the security inside and outside the Capitol, he said. And again, it wasn't like there wasn't knowledge that something was going to happen. I heard about it all the way back in November of 2020. In the third week of November, a fellow employee of mine told me that if he didn't get what he wanted, he was going to be going down to the Capitol and they were going to be made known of what it was that he wanted. A point that I warned said fellow coworker that if he went down there, he was going to wind up in a prison cell. Or dead. Plain and simple. They will ping your phone, they will find you, and they will jail you if they don't kill you outright. If you bring the fight to the government, it's like fish in a barrel. But it wasn't like it wasn't known that this was like somebody, that people were planning this. But something down towards the end that I wanted to touch on. Loudermilk also revealed that he is reviewing the work of the Democrat-led House January 6 Investigative Committee that wrapped up its work last year and has found some shocking evidence that much of its public hearings were stage-managed. And that is outside the fact that we all knew that it was all stage-managed. We found out in the documents that I acquired from the January 6 committee is the written script of every member of the committee, just like you would have on a teleprompter or if you memorize a script for a movie, he said. And so every single aspect of their hearings was scripted for a Hollywood type of emotional appeal to the American people. Now, this is the allegation of one congressperson. This does comport to what it is that I want to believe, which is a part of the reason I tend to believe it. People on the Democrat side probably don't want to believe that, so they would pretend not to believe this. Loudermilk, I want to see the scripts. We just recently had a hearing with the Chief of Capitol Police, and there was nothing scripted about it, he said. We did have certain questions we wanted to ask, but each member had their questions. The Chief wasn't given a script in advance. These hearings from the January 6th Select Committee were Hollywood productions. Again, I want to see the scripts, Barry. I know that this was a stage production because of the fact that this was put out on primetime with heavily edited CNN footage. We all know that. Give the documents, show the receipts, please. Alright, what else do we have? Trump's lawyers meet with Justice Department officials following complaints about special counsel probe. From Evan Perez, Hannah Rabinovich, and Caitlin Polantz, and Casey Gannon. Lawyers for former President Trump met with DOJ officials on Monday following public requests for a meeting about what they characterize as prosecutorial misconduct, according to sources familiar with the matter. The meeting, which lasted an estimated 90 minutes, comes as the special counsel's investigation into Trump's handling of classified documents and possible obstruction appears to be nearing its final stages. Trump's attorneys did not comment to reporters after leaving, which is intelligent, by the way. The meeting was led by DOJ's top career official who works under Deputy AG Lisa Monaco. Neither Monaco nor Garland attended. Jack Smith, who is handling the DOJ's documents and obstruction probe into the former president, met with Trump's lawyers at the DOJ on Monday, a source familiar with the matter told CNN. Smith was appointed by Garland last year and is operating independently, although with the agenda of all the people who want to take down the former president. Independently my ass. Two more weeks, Blue Anon. We got him this time. From the Hill. House oversight leaders clash after reviewing FBI documents on Biden allegations. From Rebecca Biesch and Emily Brooks. The House Oversight and Accountability Committee, leaders briefed by the FBI on the details of the tip into potential wrongdoings by President Biden, disagreed on basic conclusions, including whether it's part of an ongoing probe. Jim Comer vowed to continue with his plans to hold the FBI Director Wray in contempt for failing to physically turn over the document lawmakers reviewed alongside agents during an hour-and-a-half-long briefing. The FBI called the move an unwarranted escalation. Well, you defied a subpoena. That's the penalty for defying a subpoena. Comer said the tip memorialized the document he subpoenaed from the FBI is part of an ongoing investigation and alleges Biden may have accepted a bribe during his tenure as vice president. Given the severity and complexity of the allegations contained within the record, Congress must investigate further, he said after the Monday briefing. Wait, a politician accepted a bribe? Wow, I'm shocked. This is only the beginning. It appears the investigation is part of an ongoing investigation, which I assume is in Delaware. Jamie Raskin, the top Democrat on the panel, on the other hand, said the FBI decided not to advance its initial investigation into the matter, determining the secondhand information did not warrant follow-up by the group then Attorney General Bill Barr tasked with assessing it. What we're talking about here is a confidential human source reporting a conversation with somebody else. So we're talking about is secondhand hearsay, Raskin said, adding the source had no way of knowing about the underlying veracity of the things that he was being told. and they did whatever investigative due diligence was called for in that assessment period, and they found no reason to escalate it from an assessment to a so-called preliminary investigation, he added. FBI prosecutorial protocols, when their that's a tongue twister right there, articulable facts giving rise to suspicion of criminal activity, so they apparently decided there was not, and they called for an end to the investigation. Both CNN and NPC have reported that a team led by then U.S. Attorney Scott Brady was unable to corroborate the 2020 allegation. Comer said the panel will meet Thursday to vote on whether to hold Wray in contempt, because the FBI again refused to hand over the unclassified record to the custody of the House Oversight Committee. So, we have that going on here. A little bit on what Comer saw in this from the New York Post. FBI says Biden bribery probe ongoing involves shell companies, from Stephen Nelson. House Oversight Committee Chairman Jim Comer said Monday that an FBI informant file accusing President Biden of a $5 million bribery scheme while he was vice president involved shell companies, and that FBI officials told him it's part of an active investigation. Comer reviewed the informant file, which he said came from a highly credible informant, in person at the Capitol, and told reporters afterward that he will move to hold the FBI Director Wray in contempt for not handing over a physical copy to the panel. The claims made in the document were consistent with what we found and disclosed to you all in Romania. It suggests a pattern of bribery where payments would be made through shell accounts in multiple banks, Comer said. There's a term for that, it's called money laundering, so we feel that this accusation is consistent with a pattern that we're seeing, frankly, in other countries. Comer said that FBI officials confirmed that the unclassified FBI-generated record has not been disproven and is currently being used in an ongoing investigation. So, will anything come out of this? That's the important question. And because it is Biden, I will lean towards no. I think this will wind up going away in a hurry. Somebody will get paid off. Somebody will say, oh, if you do this, it'll help Trump win. And at the very last minute, it will all just go away. Alright, let's grab one from the Associated Press over here. Hundreds of journalists strike on to demand leadership change at biggest U.S. newspaper chain. From Alexandra Olson. Journalists at 24 local papers across the U.S. walked off the job Monday to demand an end to painful cost-cutting measures and a change of leadership at Gannett, the country's biggest newspaper chain. The strike involves hundreds of journalists at newspapers in 8 states, including the Arizona Republic, the Austin American-Statesman, the Bergen Record, the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, and the Palm Beach Post, according to the News Guild, which represents workers at more than 50 Gannett newsrooms. Gannett has said there would be no disruption to the news coverage during the strike, which will last for 2 days at 2 of the newspapers and 1 day at the rest. The walkouts coincided with Gannett's annual shareholder meeting, during which the company's board was duly elected, despite the News Guild CWA union urging shareholders to withhold their votes from the CEO and board chairman, Mike Reed, as an expression of no confidence in his leadership. Reed has overseen the company since its 2019 merger with Gatehouse Media, a tumultuous period that included layoffs and the shuttering of newsrooms. Gannett shares have dropped more than 60% since the deal closed. Susan De Carava, president of the News Guild in New York, called the shareholder meeting a slap in the face to the hundreds of Gannett journalists who were on strike today. Gannett CEO Mike Reed didn't have a word to say when the scores of journalists whose livelihoods he's destroyed, nor to the communities who have lost their primary news source thanks to the mismanagement, De Carava said in a statement. So this is... I thought this was USA Today, but this is not USA Today. This is another chain off of this, but this is going nationwide. I've never heard of most of the papers that are in this, but this is apparently the biggest chain across the country. So, I don't know where this goes. But speaking of shakeups in the newsroom, the end of an era. F. Chuck Todd will depart NPC's Meet the Depressed. Kristen Welker to become host because we can't have a straight white male be in the lead of anything anymore. From Daniel Arkin. Meet the Depressed host and moderator F. Chuck Todd announced on Sunday that he will step down this year after 9 years hosting the public affairs talk show. Kristen Welker, NPC News' co-chief White House correspondent, will succeed him. It's been an amazing, nearly decade-long run, and I'm really proud of what this team and I have built over the last decade, Todd said during the broadcast on Sunday. I've loved so much of this job, helping to explain America to Washington, and explain Washington to America. Something you failed at in both directions, by the way, Todd. His plans to remain at NPC in a new role as chief political analyst, where he will serve as a key voice in both the field and during convergence of major events. He will also focus on long-form journalism. They're going to try to make him into the next Tucker, is what they're going to do. So he's going to go make films, and he's going to go do independent stuff. When I took over on Meet the Press, it was a Sunday show that had a lot of people questioning whether it could still have a place in the modern media space, Todd added. Well, I think I've answered that question and then some. In a memo to staff members, NPC News President of Editorial, Rebecca Blumenstein, and NPC News Senior Vice President of Politics, Carrie Budoff-Brown, hailed Chuck's thoughtful and passionate leadership. Meet the Depressed has sustained its historic role as the indispensable news program on Sunday mornings. Blumenstein and Budoff-Brown said, though his penetrating interviews with many of the most important newsmakers, the show has played an essential role in politics and policy, routinely made front-page news and framed the thinking of Washington and beyond, which is a crock of shit. Now, by the way, they do have this on some accuracy on this. Like, my neighbors, I had elderly neighbors when I was a kid. Like, these two were in their 80s when I was a kid. In the 90s. So, I think the husband in that couple was born in, like, 1913. He was a World War II vet, I know that. He was in the Navy in World War II. I asked him about his tattoos. Hell of a nice guy, too, by the way. Big influence shaping me and my love for gardening, by the way, as well. They had 2 gardens around their house. But the reason that I brought them up is the fact, like, they had, and they shared with us when we were getting to the age where we could actually understand what was going on there, they had Mad magazines from the 60s and 70s talking about Nixon and the parody of that. And one of the consistent ones going all the way back to the beginning, and that one was the fact that Meet the Press was mentioned in those magazines from the 60s and 70s. So this show has been around for a long time. And honestly, yeah, 75th anniversary celebration of it. So it's been 75 years. But honestly, I'm kind of glad to see Chuck Todd go. I really am. He did have a clear agenda, and Welker's going to be worse, I promise. But he had a clear agenda. He was not an objective moderator as much as he tried to be. He could pretend to be an objective moderator, but he had an agenda for this. So, F. Chuck Todd, goodbye. Good riddance. I hope you had the time of your life. Last one. Last one I'm going to save, because it's a lengthy one. And we are exactly at the 2-hour mark, which means we go through and we check the live chat, and we head out of here for the night. So, a few people have joined me on Rumble. I've been watching the live counter over there. Nobody chats. Guys, come and chat on Rumble if you're over here. I love to see the chat. Besides, the more you chat on Rumble, the more I get promoted. And I always notice too, by the way, when Mr. Scott is over there as dual helix, or double helix, rather, that the view counter goes up while he is going on in that. So, and that goes the same for all the platforms. If you are lurking on any platform, the more you chat, the closer to the front page I get. Just so you know. No, it is dual helix. I'm sorry. I got it right the first time. So that's the thing, and I do try to get the engagement and try to get you guys in here and talking. But we do have dual helix over on the Rumble side. Over on the Instagram side today, Sandra7611 and Liza Monroe joined us over there. Thank you for that. And over on the main chat today, do we have anything on Odyssey? I don't know. I actually paid to promote on Odyssey today, so. But it was still one currently watching. Alright, back to the beginning. 80s kid to start off with the day says Biden falls. Damn you, climate change! Add that to Trump's charges. It's his fault. The Mogwai says, was Mike Pence's presidential campaign in the crash? No, that's going to be in a train wreck, not a plane crash. Can I get away with this over on YouTube? Yes, I can. Mogwai says, wow, Bitcoin dropped like a new homosexual rumor for Lindsey Graham. Apple's lackluster too. Steve Jobs had flair. Yes, he did. Silentcaster is here. It says, I did a troll yesterday that told me to self-delete. Mohawk had to step away for a few minutes while the troll talked. Coincidence? Maybe. Mohawk, why, where were you as the moderator? Gonna be a rock superstar and live hard. Tactful for Twitch? Yeah, maybe I need to learn a thing or two. Yeah, you do have to watch what, like, Twitch is less censorious because they let Amaranth show her clam and then get booted for a while and then come back. But if they catch you right at the time, like, they're not watching every second of every stream. Especially since I don't have boobs. Well, I do, but just not the way that Amaranth has. There will be that 1 second out there that does get caught somewhere. Silentcaster asked Mogwai what the definition of a right-wing extremist was. Which he didn't answer, Mogwai. What is the definition of a right-wing extremist? I hope Guile was around for that. Sonic Boom! Sonic Boom! The Mogwai did ask, how do they find every hipster in Maryland? It's not hard. Throw a rock. 80s Kid says the Boom was Brandon Swailett after his Morton pudding. Caster says, is Orange Man bad? I can't remember. Yes, Orange Man is bad. I mean, I did give my permutations of how 2024 could have me vote for Biden. I can't do it. I couldn't do it even if it was... Mogwai says the plane was unresponsive, but still more coherent than Biden White House. Mogwai says sounds like the rapid decompression causing them to pass out while the autopilot was engaged, or they might have had evidence against the Clintons. Maybe. 80s Kid says Brandon's always on the shitter. And he's not always on there. He's old. He gets like one bowel movement a day if he's lucky. He gets up and he has his big bran muffin. And then he goes and poops and takes a nap. Then he gets up and yells at the clouds, and then he goes and takes a nap. Then sometimes they give him CIA super drugs and he gives a half-coherent State of the Union speech or a long primetime speech. 80s Kid says, that dude's voice. The dude in the plane crash article. Yeah. He sounded like he was trying not to laugh hysterically. No, 80s Kid, a Cessna crash doesn't give you a sonic boom. That was the plane scrambling to go back and intercept that. Castor says, you know what this sounds like to me? Another COVID death. Get your booster. Mogwa says, planes carrying Hunter Biden or Ukraine evidence crash more often than normal aircraft, I believe. Can somebody dig up Robert Stack for this unsolved mystery? Mogwa says, how long before J. Edgar trademarks I have questions? Like Trump did, you're fired. Apparently, what'll happen is I'll waffle on it forever, and then one, like AOC or Warren, will do it, and I'll get angry and say it belongs to him, then change it slightly to rip them off. Mogwa says, the music is more interesting than a Mike Pence speech. Castro says, can we get Mitt Romney to do another run and Lindsey Graham? I think we need more people from South Carolina. Maybe Palin. I would not be opposed to Palin. She wouldn't be my first choice, but I would not be opposed either. And Dr. Oz and Herschel Walker and Larry Elder. Well, Larry Elder's already in, but they didn't mention him. Let's see. Soundcaster scared Mog away, apparently. 80s Kid said, did she say she wants abortion at 38 weeks? The baby's fully formed at that time. I say no way to that. It's 12 weeks in UK and Europe. And then we know we determined that it said she wants the Biden admin to answer questions about 38 weeks. So let's not kill women who had abortions or jail them forever. All right, Nikki, you got my vote. I am a harder sell than that. Soundcaster explaining the Twitter. It's not that I hate it, although I do. That's the issue. It's the fact that you're playing on the leftoid playing field. There is no reformer winning on Twitter. Well, you don't go into it to win. That's the thing. I use it as a news aggregator mostly. And since I started working my new job, I actually, I read more than I respond on Twitter. A lot. But it is a phenomenal news aggregator, and 95% of the video from Twitter is non-copyright. That's another big part of the reason that I use, most of the time when you see a video on Contemporary, I use a Twitter video for that reason. Because 95 to 99% of them are non-copyrighted. So that way I don't usually have to worry about getting the copyright pop. It's DMCA free, the same as the Video Game Study Lounge playlist that I use in the back. There's most of the same music is on the DJ Cutman radio station, but there's additional music on there that's really good. But that stream is copyrighted, this one is not. As long as Twitter exists, less critical thinking will as well, which means you get a bunch of blue-haired freaks controlling everything to a greater degree each cycle. Which, I mean, clearly, when you look at the stack, I don't have a problem dealing with the news outlets for blue-haired freaks. That's almost exclusively what I use, with a little bit of Daily Wire mixed in, and sometimes just the news. I use their own outlets against them. So apparently I got the Miami thing wrong. Silentcaster says it's North Miami Beach. which is much different than Miami. North Miami Beach is gorgeous and has lots of rich people walking around. Miami is not so much. The only thing that I know about Miami is it was the setting for Vice City, and that one model that I like lives there. And that's it. I hope to never set foot in that city. I think the furthest I will ever go down Florida is Orlando. And even that was unbearable. Like, my Wisconsin blood could not handle that. Silentcaster says, to be fair, most 2.5-year-olds can outsmart Republicans, and Biden is slightly more coherent than that. Warshed. Did I get that in accent? 80s Kid says, I want to follow that kid to see his video when Brandon gets his shit kicked back in. And then points out, when I was in school in the 80s, racism didn't even exist. In fact, no one ever spoke about racism until the last 10 years, until the media kicked it up from the dust. It's not because they're fit, it's because of the fact that they're shouting white power in public. Yeah, like, and I get a lot of that too. It's like what I say with Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like, these people, the people who are perpetrating these hoaxes, are the same people who put Marjorie Taylor Greene into office, who I am still convinced is a plant. Because Marjorie Taylor Greene is a parody. Like, what tipped me off and made me distrust Marjorie Taylor Greene is the fact that it's like they took every caricature of a right-winger and molded them all together and put them in a machine, and poof, out popped Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like, she acts like the caricature that they made up. It's the same with these white supremacist hoaxes. They don't act, and I know white supremacists from being in this sphere. And these people that are out there don't act like the white supremacists that I know. They act like the caricature that the left wing cooked up about white supremacist groups. Jackboots, uniforms, incredibly fit with flags and screaming white power. I have never met an actual white supremacist that acts like that. Mr. Scott came back. He says, I spent the last 6 hours programming the song Twinkle Twinkle Little Star into a KOS computer on Twitch KSP. KOS Body Blue Raised Arms. I don't know what that is, but I'm curious. I am, actually. Like, you guys, and I've said this before, once the camera is off, I go radio silent on politics for the rest of the night. Typically, I'll go watch Mrs. Maisel or listen to YouTube lore videos about Fallout or anything else like that. I am radio silent on politics as soon as the camera is off. And I do have various other interests. I like casting, too. There are a lot of metal casting channels that I like to watch, and I'm getting tangentially interested in circuit building and programming. Like, I want to know how to, if there would be a way that I could print my own microcircuits and how they work, because that was something I was never exposed to when I was a kid. And I know a lot of people did them on a macro stage with Radio Shack. After I built this computer, and when I built the first three, basically on eBay used parts, I didn't have a tangential interest in it. When I built this one and actually saw the chips and everything, I thought to myself, man, how could this be done? And could we make our own chips? I am fascinated with the idea of from scratch everything. I make my own candles, even though I don't have any base wax here right now. But I make my own candles, I season my own cast iron, I make my own jellies and jams, I know how to do scratch pancakes. Like, I know what the base ingredients are for a lot of food and a lot of stuff around the house. want to build a bed frame out of reclaimed wood. In fact, I've got the reclaimed wood that I want to use. It's just been a matter of having time and a space to work on it. But yeah, that's one thing for me, is as soon as the camera is off, the politics is done. Nothing will make you apolitical faster than analyzing politics. End of quote. Repeat the line. Is that chiptune stuff? Like, they don't give me a preview over there on Rumble Dual Helix. But I'll check that out. Let's see. Old people are cool to chill with. My old neighbor, when I was a kid, was born in 1902. He used to tell me all the time how to pronounce Roosevelt. He used the O sound like roof. Which that could be misleading from text, because my ex-girlfriend would say roof. So I don't know how you were supposed to, or if you were like, if you're saying Roosevelt and I'm just kind of retarded. '80s kid says, my parents were both born in 33. My mother was a day older than my dad. My dad was born in 58. My mom was born in 60. Cheers to long life, says Mr. Scott. '80s kid said, my mother died in 74 from alcohol. My dad died in 04 from lung cancer. Oof. F. Mr. Scott says, I was about to write something just, but I deleted it. I'm attempting to be more compassionate these days. Life humbles you, and like I said, cheers to long life. When I was a kid, diversity was actually celebrated. Dual Helix says, I thought this was the Crazy Frog song, but it turns out it goes way back. Dude, I love chiptunes. I do. I drove my coworkers nuts when I was still living down by Janesville, because I found a Chiptunes Christmas album on Spotify, and I played that all the time. Between Thanksgiving and New Year's Eve. Or Thanksgiving and Christmas Eve, I should say. Because I have a rule in my house and my workplace, is that Christmas music starts on Black Friday and ends on Christmas Day. And I found Chiptunes Christmas songs. And first I laughed and I cackled. And then I played it all the time. Alright, we're done. We're out of here. And I'm hungry. I am making chorizo taco meat. No shells, obviously, keto. And I went out and I got a couple salads from the local Quick Trip. Because man, do I love Quick Trip salads. I might put the taco meat on the salads. I am not going to lie. And put some ranch over the top. I mean, it's chicken supreme already, but yeah, throw some ranch on the top of that. Oh, man, that sounds good. I didn't even anticipate that, and now I'm thinking about doing it. You've seen an idea form. Right in time. Let's get out of here, guys. Outro music. Wherefore art thou? Outro music. Good conversation, good crowd tonight. I'm gonna check and see what this is. I'll warn you, if it's political, I'm probably not going to go to it. Let's have a look, though.
Good morning.
I don't even know what this is because they threw a stupid advertisement at me. Kerbal Space Program. Chat controls the rocket with the code. Okay. Yeah, we'll do this one. We'll go... We'll take Mr. Scott's advice and we'll go check out Johnny Othen over there on Twitch. So that'll be our raid at the end of that. Thank you for that. And with that, we're going to head out of here for the night. Thank you, everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat. Thank you, everybody who came by and hung out with us. It's been a great time. We got a lot of things going on, and it was a lot of fun here today. So come back and join me here tomorrow for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. And we'll be talking. Well, I want to look at this Anheuser-Busch thing because it's kind of interesting into how they're trying to spin this off again, even though they went through and did the thing. But we'll talk about that. That's the only leftover that we have from today, but we'll see that tomorrow. And more news, more headlines, and we will see what happens with the finances, with the presidential campaigns, with the plane crash, if any news comes out of that, and a host more over here on Contemporary. So stick around. It's going to be a great time. We will see you then. Stick around if you're on Twitch for the raid, and we will see you then. And until tomorrow, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.